SCP-7243. Per authority of the Oracle Collective. To whom it may concern, Central Normalcy Authority Iteration R Foundation of Canonical Bundle DW17 Timeline Delta Blue has been formally audited regarding compliance with organizational objectives outlined in Articles 0.2 and 1.7 of the 1981 Multi-Foundation Coalition Agreement. Advance notice regarding this audit was not established, as this iteration's Oracle position has been left vacant for several decades, with no suitable replacement representative made known to the collective. The following report consists of recovered files regarding the iteration in question, presented to both document this audit and evoke its verdict. The audit was manually conducted under direct supervision of the Oracle Prime, and its verdict may not be refuted. Item 1. Postmortem files regarding prior timeline alteration. Summary. Misuse of authority resources precipitated enhanced ascension of Tier 4 cosmological anomaly. Termination. Timeline reconstituted by Goldbrater and Associates at significant expense. Item 2. Hazardous document regarding local padosphere instability. Misuse of authority resources precipitated an enhanced ascension of Tier 4 cosmological anomaly. Contrivance. Local Tau K narrative restructuring scenario avoided. Item 3. Imperceptible document regarding local noosphere instability. Misuse of authority resources precipitated an enhanced ascension of Tier 4 cosmological anomaly. Transcendence. Repair to local noospheric rhizome in progress. Item 4. System files regarding destruction of local cybersphere. Misuse of authority resulted in precipitated enhanced ascension of Tier 4 cosmological anomaly. Deceit. And ejection of additional rogue element. Iterations Ethics Committee status unclear. Item 5. Compiled documents regarding explicit breach of contract. Now viewing. We are then given an undated document from the desk of one Dr. Douglas Deering. What is waste? The dictionary defines, well, nothing, actually. We define. The dictionary only records our definitions. Even that term is misleading. The dictionary, as though there were only one. Merriam-Webster probably says that waste, noun, is nothing but a useless byproduct of something better. Accurate so far as it goes, but it doesn't go nearly far enough. That's our fault. The worst kind of waste they're aware of is spent nuclear fuel, or carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Their definition was written without having borne witness to irreducible nimbus-benium cores powering innumerable impossible mad science projects, or the infernal combustion engines punching holes in the new ozone layer with their demonosulfuric emissions. That's the kind of waste our director takes into account. Metal that absorbs signals and grows like cancer, balls of backward flowing time, ores will come, amidon, and ectoplasm, cosmology from outer space, an endless catalog of anomalous fallouts, and excreta that we only can ameliorate because only we have seen it, because we set up the world that way. We're getting tired of seeing it. After all this time, the endless uphill landfill slog, we need to see clear blue sky beyond our horizons of trash. If only putting the waste out of mind could also put the names of sight. One might be forgiven for wishing that the very concept be erased from our manifest of magic, as the gutters overflow with anomalous ooze and gray dew projections turn perilously proximal. One might be forgiven for wishing the dictionary truly did define, and that by changing the definition of waste, we could change the very thing itself. But forgiveness is never guaranteed, and that's what gives it meaning. Dr. Deering, Chief of Achromatic Abatement, is interviewed by Dr. Ng, while recovering under heavy sedation. He describes AAF-D as Site-43's enormous, overworked, anomalous waste plan. It runs constantly on triage, periodically flushing overflow into an animatronic sump to buy time. The facility is past capacity. Maintenance is stretched thin, and Deering admits the next flush may only postpone catastrophe for months, if that. During the interview, Deering produces a small childhood toy, a sliding compartment box he found while cleaning out his parents' home. He claims it makes things disappear. When Ing tests it with her Site-43 badge, it appears to vanish from the compartment. Though Deering reveals later that this is a simple gimmick, a slide in a hidden mirror rather than a Colt power. Deering then recounts the events of September 8th, while supervising or visiting his brother Philip at the junction between two esoteric outflow pipes. An unexpected valve movement allowed incompatible effluences to mix. The Orphic outflow instantly manifested as overlapping multi-temporal apparitions, an army of Technicolor ghosts. Philip moved to operate the suction controls to divert the surge, but an ethereal entity intercepted him, overlaid and compressed itself onto his body, and violently ruptured him in the course of absorbing the effluence. Deering describes the scene in fragmented, anguished detail, and repeatedly states that he does not remember turning the handle. Ing notes that the camera is showing Deering operating the control despite his claims of memory loss. The transcript ends with Deering clearly traumatized, alternating between clinical explanation and stunned denial. The recording evidence indicates a catastrophic mixing event, a compromised control interface, and the death of a Deputy Chief Philip Deering. The AAF-G's infrastructure is failing under load, and the current abatement procedures are increasingly unable to reliably contain or neutralize emergent phenomena. After all of this, we are then given the actual article, part of SCP-7243. The special containment procedures read, SCP-7243 must, and only must, abate atraumatic waste materials which do not exist. It cannot, under any circumstances, be used to neutralize anything measurably extant. This procedure is a factual result of SCP-7243's operation, and requires no active maintenance. Minimization of existing esoteric effluents is achieved globally by strict adherence to the following procedures. All anomalies must undergo regular inspection to monitor trends in production of anomalous waste byproducts. All such trends must be reviewed by atraumatic abatement personnel to determine existential abatement qualification. Candidates generating effluents with sufficient frequency, quantity, and/or toxicity are designated SCP-7243-A. Each affected containment facility must coordinate the installation of secure waste collection and storage mechanisms as needed. Each SCP-7243-A's respective waste collection system must remain active if and only if it spontaneously ceases generating waste. If any SCP-7243-A spontaneously resumes generating waste, its collection system must be deactivated, and logistics immediately notified. The logistics branch must maintain a global network, consolidation, and supply lines for transport of non-existent effluents to Site-43. All atraumatic material in absentia must be voided from empty containers into SCP-7243 Central Aperture. Members of ATF Gamma 7243 are remanded to the grounds of Site-43 and may not leave without obtaining express permission from Research Head Task Force Commander Dr. Elise Radners. What is waste? Waste is when a thing full of life and promise, a thing of beauty, is obliterated before its full potential is realized. Waste is snuffing out light in our darkest hour. Waste is death, and I am going to kill it. We're given the first addendum, scientific context, an excerpt from Atraumatic Abatement and You. Abstract. In principle, the Foundation only considers neutralization of anomalous phenomena where containment is infeasible and uncontainment is desirable. Generally, if one anomaly produces another, that new phenomenon should also be contained and studied. When these byproducts are generated continuously, however, their containment will eventually become infeasible, and so the criteria is met for their disposal. Mass containment facilities, particularly those specializing in biological containment, are already equipped with immense infrastructures for disposing of conventional waste. Unfortunately, these systems cannot contend with unconventional waste, the esoteric properties of which may eventuate any number of unforeseen issues. Each year, innumerable breaches are caused by the reaction of multiple anomalous substances in spaces they should never have occupied in the first instance: garbage dumpsters, sewage tanks, ventilation systems, and the like. This leaves our most crucial sites with the issue of storing, transporting, and neutralizing large concentrations of volatile esoteric effluents on a case-by-case basis for an arbitrary number of anomalies with arbitrary abilities ad infinitum. This is the ever-progressing front on which Abatement does battle. It attempts to generalize the problems of safe storage, transport, and amelioration for arbitrary atraumatic waste. These are extremely messy problems to solve, and not just in a practical sense. Theoretically, atraumatic abatement deals in the development of containment and neutralization techniques for all possible anomalous effects, and accounting for their potential interactions with all other anomalous effects. At the time of writing, no singular inciting element has been identified as the cause to which the entire range of anomalous phenomena can be attributed. In the opinion of this atraumaticist, no such element exists. Definitively, anomalies are determined by whether they are congruent with our limited human understanding. There is no Swan boson, or similar phenomenon that grants a substance the quality of defying exception, or defying expectation. It is therefore impossible to develop comprehensive technique which can strip any arbitrary substance of its anomalous properties with certainty, short of developing rigorous scientific explanations for those properties and conveying them pedagogically to human populace entire. As such, the primary approach of atraumatic abatement has been to group esoteric substances into broad classes based on their properties, developing containment and treatment strategies for each class and subclass therein. This classification system is necessarily non-rigorous and cannot comprehensively describe all atraumatic material for reasons aforementioned, but a much more effective model has yet to be developed. The following is a hard-copy correspondence transpired between Dr. Duddle Deering and Chief Torosian Deering prior to the proposal of SCP-7243. Torosian Deering starts off strongly, saying, "You killed my husband." Deering responds with, "I couldn't save him. If I'd had even 1 second to react, I would've. I'm sorry the system let him down. Let you down. I'm sorry that we led the clients so far and so fast. At this point, we can't even begin to predict how increasingly volatile materials will interact with each other and our obsolete equipment. The entity which killed Philip could have resulted from any number of vectors. It will never be possible to blame any one specific. All we can do is dedicate ourselves to the cause he gave his life for, do it better, and do it more efficiently, and do it right." Torosian responds furiously with, "You killed my husband. You. Only you." Deering responds with, "Amelia, nobody on Earth understands what you lost the way I do, and so I understand if you need someone to blame. I'm in charge of Abate, and whatever happens under that umbrella is on me. That's the job. But we can't lose sight of the fact that what killed Philip was an extreme statistical outlier under nobody's control. A nasty twist of fate we can't even begin to comprehend, let alone measure or meet our justice to. After all our efforts, things like that still exist. They're even multiplying. We dwell on our mistakes, they'll overtake us, and we can't give up on our quest to figure out where all this is coming from and how to send it back there. If we do it, it wins. If it wins, Philip died for nothing." Torosian Deering responds furiously with this: "You can't even call him your brother, not even in a letter. Take responsibility for once in your life, you smudge sack of shit. There's never any entity. You're the only one who claims to have seen it. And whether you might believe, you're not that fucking important. You know what Phil told me when I asked if you were coming to his deputy chief promo? Probably not. to be too ashamed. You know what else? He internalized that for so long, he didn't even think to be sad about it. It was just the way things were. To him, I think that's why I finally realized I was going to have to hate you. Well, before you finally did something to really, truly earn it. You're incapable of facing up to anything that reflects poorly on you, so you can make excuses for why you shouldn't have to. Can't attend the ceremony because of a scheduling conflict, not because you can't stand admitting that you share DNA with a glorified janitor. Can't come to the wedding because it's even worse seeing more janitor blood seeping into the family. Can't take a break from dissolving parathylline like the single-minded and studious little worm that you are to even allow a single genuine moment of base human connection. You can't admit you bumblefucked into a piece of sensitive equipment because you were too preoccupied with the cleverness of your weak, self-centered peace offering, and killed the only person on the planet who ever had the tiniest scrap of respect for you. Let me tell you something, Doug. Philip never reflected poorly on you. You reflected poorly on him. Perpetual present tense, to his infinite credit, that never crossed his mind. Deering responds with, "What can I do to make this right? Convinced you that I'm only ever trying to help. I gave my life to this project. I'd do anything to see it through. Tell me. Is it I don't respect you? You're the best sanitation engineer in the facility full of certified geniuses. Give me a goal. A selfless one. Something Philip would have been proud to see me achieve. And I will show you I've never in my life been more determined." Rosen responds, pretty straightforward with, "You want a goal? Fine, here's your goal. No more waste." Deering responds, "Okay." And then says, "I'm working on it. I want you to know that. You're right, a lot of things. We need perspective. We need to get creative. I can see it on the horizon. Don't need your help to see us through. We can make it a monument to his memory. Please pick up the phone. He was my brother, Amelia, and I loved him. You and I are all that's left of what he was, plus whatever legacy we leave in his name. Come to me with a plan, or not at all." In parallel with this exchange, Dr. Deering is engaged in a frequent email correspondence with Dr. Place HMD, PhD. The final entries of this chain are attached below. Look, MC Doctorate. Look, I understand that you're dividing your energies within a great many projects right now, and you think that my requests are a distraction. I'm telling you this from a position of absolute expertise and certainty. You want to be involved in this. You've left me on red to know that your time is at a premium. I'm telling you that you don't know the half of it. Your time is short. We can't ignore the Astro Bay problem anymore, or it's going into our species' meteor strike. I'm the only one left with the drive to deflect this hanging over our heads. You're trying to save the world for the third, fourth, fifth time? I have just one question for you. Are you content with being your last? PHMD responds with simply, "Let's talk." After all this jargon, we're given a description. SCP-7243 is the Deering placeholder latent existential abatement, also known as the Duplexa engine, an advanced industrial item machine designed for comprehensive mass disposal of generalized esoteric waste. It is housed within an atraumatic abatement facility, Exactus, AAF-X, the nethermost structure of Subterranean Research and Containment Site 43. AAF-X is the largest waste processing facility on Earth, and is responsible for the 95% decrease in global atraumatic waste production. From a baseline perspective, SCP-7243 processes no waste. Rather than actively detoxifying esoteric effluents, the Duplexa forms a novel atraumatic abatement procedure, which ensures the non-existence of any effluents which it would be used to abate. For any substance to be deposited into SCP-7243, the following would occur. That substance will be instantly annihilated, retrocausally from all of space-time. The substance would never have existed at all, and thus would not have been deposited into SCP-7243 in the first place. The scenario would generalize a buildup of retrocausal quanta, which, if left unchecked, would induce a ZK-class temporal paradox. SCP-7243 would absorb the imminent paradox and redirect its quanta into the immediate past, colliding with paradoxical substance, causing its annihilation. In thus, a stable time loop would form, wherein the substance's non-existence is self-justifying. As such, from the baseline perspective, SCP-7243 prevents the creation of any esoteric effluence which it would practically be used to neutralized. So long as the supply lines necessary to deliver atraumatic materials from their sources to SCP-7243 remain fully operational, no such waste materials will ever be produced. SCP-7243-A collectively designates all anomalies for which supply lines to SCP-7243 have been instated. To date, 97% of all effluence-generating anomalies comprise SCP-7243-A. The following transcript is extracted from the Kilometria.aic automatic audio logs for the Site-43 Atraumatic Abatement section. Audio was recorded shortly after SCP-7243's initial approval. Chief Torosi Endearing flips through the schematics in disbelief. The plan, she says, flatly is just insane. Deering insists that it's just math. A counterintuitive chronomechanical solution that, if executed, will neutralize the abatement backlog. Amelia shoots back with that his math isn't ordinary arithmetic but dangerous tinkering with a time stream. She keeps returning to these states. If they're wrong, consequences for time itself will be catastrophic. Deering names Rob's collaborators, place Reinders, and swears the design is viable and protected by foolproof failsafes, redundancies, and rigorous engineering. Torosi and Deering remains unconvinced, calling the assurances inadequate, any fatigue and stress factors in the plans incorrect. Deering argues that this approach is the only real solution to kill waste, and that refusing to pursue it is accepting its systemic failure. Amelia sees this as recklessness, as pretty much a gamble with reality. Deering imminent and almost prophetic about necessity, Amelia alarmed and focused on the practical engineering limits. Her last note is procedural and cutting. The fatigue ratings are wrong, and implying if the design needs serious, concrete revision before anything can actually be signed off. We are then given some info on the internal mechanics of SCP-7243. Operational mechanics. SCP-7243 only abates materials which do not exist. Conversely, any material which does measurably exist cannot be processed by SCP-7243. This is no flaw of the engine's design. By virtue of existing, any observable substance is predestined to never be processed by SCP-7243. It must be abated by conventional means. Attempts to deposit existent materials into SCP-7243 are invariably futile. A subsequence of events will inevitably transpire, such that those materials never reach SCP-7243's central aperture. Such events could statistically manifest as logistical failures. For existence, an anti-esoteric shipping crate containing a quantity of undetected effluents is loaded onto a cargo ship en route to Site-43. If stored above deck, the crate might fall overboard. If below, the ship might sink or encounter critical issues mid-voyage. As the crate grows nearer to AAF-X, circumstances of preventing its eradication become increasingly chaotic and disastrous. Contingencies. Fortunately, the hypothetical instance described is impossible. If a container or transport vessel possesses any amount of effluence, it must fill to reach AAF-X, and so its entire payload will exist. Full waste containers can be reliably detected and rerouted. By continuously monitoring the production and lack thereof of all esoteric waste globally, the atraumatic abatement personnel cross-reference spontaneous abatement failures with logistics effluence for collection and transport networks, thereby predicting precisely where further logistical failures are most likely to occur. These failures can be preemptively avoided. The relevant effluents must still be redirected back to backed-up facilities, but their corresponding supply lines can be temporarily halted and inspected for faults. In this way, SCP-7243's behavior warns the Foundation of any impending event which would and must prevent the transportation of extant effluents to AAF-X. SCP-7243 is also highly sensitive to local chronological shift, and should such a shift occur, is configured to reference the causal dependencies of its surroundings in order to reinforce its own chronology. The Parachronology Division has identified 7 personnel: Dr. Douglas Deering, Technician Philip Deering, Dr. Place H. M.D., Dr. Alan McInnes, Dr. Nguyen Anh, Dr. Ilse Reinders, Chief Amelia Torosian Deering, on whose actions SCP-7243 is causally dependent. In case of impending K-class event, due either to external influence or some sort of internal malfunction, it is crucial that these individuals or their remains, where applicable, remain proximal to AAF-X. For this purpose, the aforementioned surviving individuals have been organized into Applied Task Force Abatement 7243, indefinitely stationed within Site-43, and provided amenities to minimize apertures. As performing referential calculations imposes a significant electrical drain on the Site-43's local power grid, the device will only perform this check automatically once every 3 days. Shift detection must be installed manually at any time by the Chief of Applied Occultism. Origin: in Q4 2029, following an extended leave of absence, Applied Occultism Chief Douglas A. Deering returned to the duty of newfound interest in novel achromatic abatement techniques. Deering submitted several project proposals advocating for the creation of experimental abatement mechanisms based upon various parascientific theories. All such were denied, or for either or both excessive costs or lack of methodological confidence. In Q1 2031, a denied proposal was selected for reconsideration by esoteric polymath Place H. M.D., Ph.D., who noted that the Pilcrow Minkowski Center for Multidisciplinary Studies had verified Dr. Deering's relevant findings at scale. Jointly backed by PM Center and Parachronology Division, the project was retroactively approved. Construction began in Q2 2031 under the engineering supervision of Janitorial and Maintenance Section Chief Amelia Torosian Deering, and was completed in Q2 2032. What is waste? Sometimes it's a good thing. Heat shielding, for example. We work off our excess physical energy into sweat, its mental equivalent into a job well done. We radiate the remainder over time, or convect into the winds of change, or else conduct it into the cold spaces between warm bodies, stabilize in the interval, preventing burnout. Waste can be transformative. Addendum 2. Association Event. Date: March 17, 2036. March 17th. Research Site 79 reports the production of extant effluents by several SCP-7243-A instances. Logistics is notified begins rerouting extant effluents to various fallback sites. On the same day, Site 79 reports full production of effluents by all respective SCP-7243-A instances, indicating comprehensive failure of its dedicated supply line with less than 80 hours. Logistics halts relevant operations for immediate inspection. On March 18th, Containment Site 50. Oh shit, that's April. Just pretend I said April. Containment Site 50 reports full production of effluents by all respective SCP-7243-A instances, indicating a collective failure of Japan's dedicated supply lines. Additional containment logistics personnel are deployed for inspection. On the same day, logistics is unable to discern the cause of eventual supply failure. Local fallback abatement facilities have exceeded capacity. Supply lines are resumed to redirect excess effluents to Australian fallback lines. Within the 8-hour duration, containment sites 36, 45, and 84 report full production of effluents, indicating a complete failure of all dedicated supply lines across Asia, Australia, and Eastern Europe. On April 19th, logistics is unable to deploy sufficient personnel for situational assessment. Achromatic abatement personnel are notified of an impending event of unclear nature, and begin rigorous inspection of AAF-X with relevant delivery systems while still operational. On the same day, various Foundation facilities across Western Europe begin to report similar failures of existential abatement. Achromatic abatement personnel discover these failures, have been returning at a roughly consistent rate. The effect appears to be spreading outwards radially from Site-79. On April 20th, total existential abatement failure reported across all sites across North America. Overwatch Command and Parachronology are informed of impending global abatement failure of unknown origin. Emergency transport contingencies are immediately activated worldwide to alleviate near-critical buildups of extant effluents. Parachronology begins lateral chronological analysis protocol to determine likelihood of chronological or other reality shift. ATF-7243 are immediately called to their posts within AAF-X. On the same day, to the loss of .AIC power communication and Christian services via RAID Frame 8, Chinese militia groups intercept logistics communications regarding the ongoing emergent scenario. Mainland China's government refuses entry to logistics transport vessels, citing direct order of the GOC. Contingency systems are unable to account for a critical buildup of esoteric substances, resulting in catastrophic hazardous material breach. Site 50 and Site 79 are both lost. Facilities across North America's western coast begin to experience existential abatement failure. Aftermath abatement director a prior analysis, having determined that the predicted locus of failure is not Site 79 but Site 43, in reverse order of proximity. All but one of ATF-7243 have reported to AAF-X. Following SMS correspondence occurs between Task Force Commander Dr. Reinders and Place HMD PhD. Get back here immediately. Give me your ETA as soon as you know it. We need you now. Where are you? Don't you dare forward my calls. I am not to be ignored. Pick up your phone. When do you need me there? Now. Pick up the phone. I'm busy. I got a time traveling universe hopping teleportation machine. I'm sure I'll be where I need to be, when I need to be. What the hell is wrong with you? Under no circumstances will you fly into the eye of esoteric hurricane with that thing. Why are you at 087? Pick up. On April 20th, the logistics branch is unable to discern procedural cause of failure. The aftermath abatement section is unable to discern any fault in AAF-X's operation, or that of the Duplexa engine itself. Parachronology is unable to detect any symptoms of an imminent CK-class, ZK-class, or other SK-class event. The Temporal Anomalies Department forecasts a 0% probability of any impending reality shift or chronological shift, temporal pivot, or timeline branch, timeline merge, or any possible cause of SCP-7243's malfunction. The Temporality Annex is unresponsive. On April 21st, the Astronomy Department reports sudden activity from SCP-179. It holds its head in its hands, apparently sobbing, means unclear. Total existential abatement failures occurred across all relevant facilities, except those within a 1,000 km distance of Site 43. Several more follow-up facilities have failed. Contingency systems are beyond capacity, and further SMS correspondence occurs between Dr. Reinders and Dr. PhMD. Neither of us is stupid. I know what you are. I know you've been playing something. You may have everyone else fooled, but if we live to see tomorrow, know this. I'm going to stop you. On April 21st, with no discernible indication of the impending event's nature, it is presumed that by default some oblique malfunction of SCP-7243 will be responsible. Dr. Reinders proposes the deactivation of SCP-7243 immediately following the delivery of all remaining effluents and absentia, as those non-materials must be voided into its aperture to prevent a ZK-class temporal paradox. O5 Council reports that extra-universal parties and contingency groups are entirely unresponsive. Emergency Protocol Available is enacted, all available sources redirected towards abatement, cleanup, and contingency efforts. SCP-2000 is activated in standby mode. Dr. Reinders convenes remotely with O5 Council. She is incidentally informed of the Black Site Facility 6488, in which RAID Frame 8 is housed. She is then informed of the true nature of Lotus's origin and operation, as well as its imminent planned deactivation. Dr. Reiner's attempts to warn the Council of the potential ramifications if Lotus's deactivation, but its connections abruptly terminated by unknown means. The further correspondence between Reiner's and Dr. PHMD simply reads, "You know how it goes." Reinders proceeds to disassemble the jury-rid nearby terminal components to a makeshift broadcast system. She attempts to hail Facility 7488 and all nearby sites, calling for any available respondents, but nobody came. As the final waste heart approaches SCP-7243 Central Aperture, all remaining ATF personnel and maintenance technicians prepare for the first ever complete deactivation of AAF-X. Lotus begins its deactivation sequence, causing an unprecedented release of highly deviant artificial intelligences into various digital systems globally and beyond. SCP-7243 successfully commences shutdown, and no faults are detected. Dr. Deering begins arguing with Dr. Reinders, maintaining the position that their deactivation of 7243 is the very event which retroactively caused global existential abatement failure. The Paradox Exodus engine co-opted by Rogue AI, causing it and Dr. PHMD's demanifestation from consensus reality. Dr. Reinders' further attempts to contact him are unsuccessful. Dr. Deering is interrupted mid-harangue by spontaneous reactivation of SCP-7243. All internal cores hyperactivate, triggering chronological reinforcement contingency protocols. Reinders orders the immediate shutdown of SCP-7243 via analog manual override. Maintenance personnel report confusion at AAF-XPA system broadcast, conflicting instructions in a near-perfect imitation of Dr. Reinders' voice. Deering approaches Chief Torosian Deering, procures a heavily modified TAD jump watch from his uniform pocket, and begins tapping it in frantic rhythm. Reinders exclaims, pulling Deering towards herself, attempting to stop him. The device reactivates, causing both to disappear. As 7243's latent stores extant influence and paradoxically reinstated non-effluence towards approach territorial lucidity, intense red-blue hue begins to permeate AAF-X. Multiple possible iterations of Dr. McLinnis and Amy manifest and overlap, signaling an imminent Copenhagen decoherence event. Chief Torosian Deering vocalized stress and quickly edits AAF-X. Local time cycles rapidly through the calendar year. 7243 scheduled automatic reference check triggers 122 times in quick succession. Apparitions of Dr. Deering, who remains absent, attempt to override this every 3 seconds. Its absence between attempts to override is deemed inauthentic. The device is unable to locate sufficient anchors for its definitive chronology, and is forced to utilize a probabilistic metric. Multiple attempted micro-adjustments overlap in local space-time. A large film projector reel manifests from within Dr. Ains' skull, killing her instantly. Iterations of Dr. McLinnis draw concealed weapons and fire upon each other simultaneously. Maintenance personnel begin to sever their own fingers and uncontrollably consume the lost blood. A fourth sub-level manifests between Site 43 and AAF-X, containing 2 elderly humanoid figures. They are immediately aerosolized by ambient thermic bloom and incorporated into a coruscating halo suffusing the bedrock. Achromatic decontainment events increase in frequency and severity unfold. Chief Torosian Deering sprints down a narrow hallway toward the emergency achromatic redundancy bunker. She trips over the torso of Chief Torosian Deering, and is knocked unconscious by the fall. SCP-7243 initiates chronological reinforcement, then proceeds to explode, then proceeds to implode. SCP-7243 is a breach that keeps on breaching. SCP-7243 is there is no cannon. The Duplexa engine is not itself. SCP-7243 is a 30-square-foot room located in Provisional Outpost A-904, a faux 2-story home suburban Garrett Park, Maryland, USA. SCP-7243 is Existential Abatement. SCP-7243 will be the common denominator. SCP-7243 is what you've all been waiting for. It must not exist. SCP-7243 must exist. SCP-7243 is the infinite death of Philip Eugene Deering. SCP-7243 is the infinite failures of Dugdale, Alton, Deering. SCP-7243 is the anti-idea, cosmic joke, a tumorous troll, a recursive deceit, and so are we all. After this message, connection was lost, then gained, then terminated, and then ameliorated. And that's the end of the log. After that event, we're given a file selection. There are 3 files: NX-7243 Provision-1, 2, and 3. Let's start with 1. Designation NX-7243. The civilian designation, population, and something class are all unable to be presented as an error occurred. The interaction protocol is pending, and the assigned facilities also are unable to be shown as an error has also occurred. The description also is not present as an error has occurred again. And then there's a text that says NX-7243 is designation, and no further text. This designation hereafter AO NX-7243 was created to facilitate communication. However, 7243's intended usage is rendered impossible and is subject to an something effect. The only really intact part of this first file is this. AO NX-7243's intended usage is inhibited by an effect. Said inhibition is not apparently caused by any of the following events in isolation: lesser antimatter effect, unattainable. Greater antimatter effect, incomprehensible. Semi-ontological hazard, cognito hazard, narrative hazard, localized micro CK class commutative retcon, miscellaneous chronological shift, extra noospherism, the deletion effect, and ontokinesis. Due to the recent influx of highly deviant artificial intelligence, the role of digital subterfuge and the effect cannot be ruled out. Supposing there is none, it would stand to reason that AO NX-7243's intended usage is inhibited by a fundamental informational level, possibly a macroscopic quantum phenomenon. In any case, this phenomenon propagates to any term those who intended function for any term whose intended function is uniquely and possibly similar to that of AO NX-7243. For the origin section, it simply reads, can't contain the set of all possible square pegs within a set of all possible round holes. I'm not sure what that means. There's a comment on this too, from a Dr. E. Forkley. It reads, and I quote, "Fuck it. This is neither above or below my pay grade. Good luck figuring out which." For NX Provision 2, it reads this. The interaction protocol simply reads, save her, but there are no assigned facilities. The forward is this. I've been with the Foundation long enough to recognize I am only begrudgingly consulted, and that's what's happening here. Despite the fact that I am the world's premier expert on present subject, despite my profession of first-hand knowledge regarding the disaster which rendered it supposedly indescribable, and despite my persistent entreaties to be looped into the research and containment process, I have been stonewalled at every turn until the utmost end of alternative resources. I, Dr. Dugdale Alton Deering, once stood at the head of scientific department, second in importance to none of this earth. We faced an anomalous waste crisis of unprecedented and ever-escalating scale, and my staff and I were charged with its amelioration. Here is my precise, Trojan 100% accurate explanation of how that worked. And that, though no fault of my own, went wrong with it. Site 43 is destination for a facility constructed 1 kilometer beneath hyperwashed Provincial Park in Lambton Country, Ontario, Canada, for research and containment operations, the most vital of which is the advanced acromac abatement, neutralization of esoteric effluents. Site 43 contained 4 of the most advanced acro-abate facilities on Earth, though there existed multiple satellite facilities in other areas and sites internationally. Our tireless efforts resulted in a stalemate with this implacable opponent, until in a moment of personal inspiration, I was able to devise a noble abatement method which could permanently terminate the matter in question via the application of advanced parascience. I enlisted the aid of Chief Amelia Tarosian Deering to construct a device we deem the Deplexa engine. After consultation with various external experts, including Dr. Elise Reinders and Dr. Placeholder McDoctorate, the device eventuated in my prime aspiration for anomalous waste. That could be conceptually erased from existence, as though it had never existed in the first place. Effluents went into the engine, and nothing came out. And retrocausally, nothing went in. Resulting in the resulting paradox that powered the machine itself. It was elegant, flawless, and very effective. We had beaten back the beast and ended the crisis. My short-sighted consultants, or if not short-sighted and extremely malicious, caused the device to be deactivated at a critical moment. This allowed for original course of casualty to retroactively resume, and we experienced total effluence maximalization effect unabated by any other mechanisms, which in short order caused Site-43 and Nexus 94 within it is which situated to be stricken from consensus reality. Chief Tarosian Deering and I witnessed these events. I attempted to escape with her in order to help coordinate disaster mitigation and release efforts, but Reinders interfered with a selfish bid to preserve her own existence, and we were instead transported from the facility together. The conceptually null space you call Nexus 7243 is Site-43 and Nexus 94. They still exist, it is my duty to restore them. Unlike my colleagues, I do not shrink my responsibilities. There's another comment. It doesn't matter whether anyone else can parse this, if it's the correct version of the file. That was a quote from Deering himself. We are then given a notice from the Records of Information Security Administration, which reads, "While we appreciate your submission, this is not a recreational library. As you know, the accuracy of our archives is an instrumental goal, subservient to our aims of research and entertainment. From a pragmatic perspective, the document you have created is far from correct, and frankly, it fails to communicate much of anything. Based on the evidence to hand, it appears you have suffered multiple cases of intense emotional trauma in relation to this document's supposed content. As no AI transcripts are available for counseling service, has recommended you seek the support of your peers at this time. Your submission will be kept on file." Then we go to the third file, which is just listed as NH7243, which thankfully is a fully filled out document. Interaction protocols. A concise protocol for interaction with the entirety of Nexus 000, of course impossible, in the context of this file's origin and intended indirect implications. Containment facilities are to be constructed in surrounding any known interior bounds of Nexus 0 where feasible. Department of Esoteric Reduction is responsible for the maintenance of such facilities, chiefly Outpost 7243 and associated research. The Logistics Branch is to continue utilizing pre-existing infrastructure for the collection of esoteric waste substances, whether extant or in absentia, and begin their transportation to Outpost 7243. The Department of Esoteric Reduction must oversee the safe disposal of said esoteric waste via its ejection from Nexus 0. Nexus 0 designates consensus reality, all that which is observably, measurably extant, and compatible with our universe. This includes any other extra-universal space which is tethered to or interfaces with our reality in a coherent fashion. Any region which can successfully be referenced with consensus reality is itself an extension of consensus reality, therefore comprising Nexus 0. Nexus 0 is of course not a single continuous physical surface. It incorporates various physically disconnected locals, which are at least informationally adjacent to consensus reality. However, it has been evidenced to our foundation that the manifold to our local universe, Nexus 0-A, possesses joints and or boundaries of informational discontinuity. These discontinuities are not to be confused with embedded pocket universes, i.e. a black hole's interior, nor the regions of non-existence, nor extreme anti-magnetic influence, nor local breakdown of dimensional physics, nor hazardous non-nomenclative influence. All such regions can still be referenced, however, surreptitiously within the manifold of Nexus 0. Instead, these discontinuities demarcate the bounds of which can be referenced from Nexus 0 to restate as clearly the subject will allow Consensus reality consists of solely space which can be referenced within consensus reality. Consensus reality possesses internal information discontinuities. Some such discontinuous boundaries are embedded within the interior space of physical reality, despite making the bounds of informational reality. A hypothetical region existing outside Nexus Zero would be impossible to reference, even in a statement which attempts to explain the impossibility of its being referenced. An extreme degree of vagueness, implication, and definition in the negative is fundamentally required in order to express discrepancies between our physical and informational realities. As any true statement regarding the physical nature of each is a discrepancy, and is definitionally incompatible with the informational makeup of this universe. Functionally, the Nexus Zero designation is utilized as an inverse of the deprecated Nexus 7243, as the latter does not refer. Both prior and contemporaries with efforts to resolve the global fallout of Incident 6488-DI, a staggering increase in production of esoteric waste substances was reported by all containment areas and sites. Apparently coincidentally, the logistics branch noted an inexplicable surplus of infrastructure for esoteric substance and collection and distribution. Thus equipped to supply a 100-fold increase in esoteric waste processing systems, logistics attempted construction of a requisite emergency duplicates. It however gradually became clear that all schematics, blueprints, and methodological descriptions of extant waste processing systems had become subject to an effect. It is assumed to be a byproduct of the aforementioned incident. As the systems did not be reverse engineered, duplicate systems could not be constructed, nor could similar novel systems be designated. As an effect pervaded all these attempts, our Foundation's understanding of esoteric waste was found to be strikingly underdeveloped, and all relevant pre-existing technologies have been rendered incomprehensible. Analytical and communicative struggles were exacerbated by constant inference from rogue AI agents, prohibiting any combined effort to properly contend with redundant anomalous substances. In the wake of the ongoing Lotus crisis, a global buildup of these substances could not be afforded, despite an incomplete understanding of its former waste disposal solutions. The logistics branch elected to a stopgap measure, re-engage its global supply network, and temporarily resume the delivery of esoteric substances to discontinuity in Nexus Zero. Despite the reactivation of Lotus on August 14, 2036, an effect persisted. It was also encountered by attempting to conceptualize, describe, and measure the nature of discontinuity, prompting the creation of both Outpost 7243 and this file. After consultation with researcher Emeritus Dr. D. Deering, who had spent much of his retirement independently investigating the properties and calcification of esoteric waste substances, Keating's selection of Area 12's research staff were organized into the Department of Esoteric Reduction and tasked with indefinite maintenance of Outpost 7243. Despite the effectiveness of Project Sargasso in identifying and remediating infrastructural damage and anomalous phenomena produced by rogue AI events, an effect can neither be rectified nor better analyzed by OCI systems. Per recommendation of Chief Esoteric Reductionist Dr. D. Deering, and given absence of a more effective solution, this file's interaction protocols have been permanently instated as a standard esoteric waste disposal procedure. Neutralization of Lotus on May 8, 2042, and subsequent reconstitution of associated conceptual structures has not observably alleviated an effect, which is initial deactivation seemingly extinguished, insulated. Esoteric polymath Place HMD PhD, having returned to the local timeline following deactivation of Lotus, is expectedly unable to provide context pertaining to his correspondence with Dr. I. Reinders during Incident 6488-D2. Both agree that the interface and imprisonment by rogue AI was responsible for any local discrepancies. The following is a journal entry from August 14, 2042 from Dr. Douglas Deering. I don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. Nobody, not anybody, has lived with this subject longer than I have, not even Reinders. Maybe I didn't invent the science. Maybe I didn't get a 7-decade crash course on the workings of a universe before I had just did my Orin. I'm the first person to attempt a solution, a real lasting solution to this problem. Everyone before me just laying track doesn't make that much imagination. Me, I've been imagining what the terminal looks like for 30 years. Maybe that's why I'm the only one who still remembers. Not the O5s with their amnestics, not with anti-memanics, not even the damn deep wells. Me, Only me, because there's nothing to do with... There's nothing to me except this problem. You can't separate us and have anything left over. Maybe I'm being punished again in this world. Maybe that's reason enough. But I don't care. I can handle punishment. I can handle all of these. I can handle all these small-minded idiots treating me like a fool. I've been ignored before. It's my talent. They're still passing me on their way from nowhere to nothing. I'll be working to the goal just like always. Just like she would be, and maybe still. I'm pouring every waking moment into the black hole that swallowed everything I love. And there's what I hear rattling around in there in response. Site 43 still exists. I'm gonna get you out of there. We are then given a third article within this article, which is listed as E001. Instead of being an object or phenomena, it is a scenario. Preceding events reads, E001 was a recurrent catastrophic containment failure. It was contained through amelioration of its effects. In 2043, on the 8th day of September, the following events occurred at Site 43. Events are timed to be precise, second with extremely narrow margins of error. A large container of At 5:18, a large container of esoteric waste is delivered to Outpost 7243 by a Mark 9 logistics trawler, Mark 11 logistics trawler. It's offloaded and pumped through a specialized culvert to be neutralized as per Nexus Interactive protocols. At 6:21, as the waste passes outside of consensus reality, Outpost 7243 records a 3.8 magnitude earthquake apparently originating from a location beyond the bounds of Nexus 0. At 6:22, the news of the seismic event is communicated through the chief esoteric reductionist Dr. D. Deering. No immediate response is ordered yet. The parachronometers buried beneath Outpost 7243 detect a gradual increase in local chronological stability. This is incongruent with any previous spikes in ambient readings. Maintenance personnel alert supervisors of the presence of new reality, beyond the defined threshold of Nexus 0, featuring a landscape composed of grasses and clay soils. News of this event is communicated to Chief Esoteric Reductionist Dr. D. Deering. No immediate response is also ordered yet. Deering privately contacts Dr. I. Reinders, informing her of the ongoing events. Expressing a level of shock and enthusiasm, Reinders terminates contacts. Personnel continue to report unusual activity near the boundaries of Nexus 0. At 6:23, Dr. I. Reinders arrives at Outpost 7243 in an off-road Foundation escort vehicle. Reinders produces emergency level 6 credentials, using them to access Outpost 7243's primary control center, and triggers the facility-wide alarm system. Outpost 7243's personnel are evacuated. Critical personnel are evacuated by helicopter, and reality continues to materialize past the threshold of Nexus 0, revealing the presence of an enormous research and containment site. The Joint Detachment of Applied Force Department and Parachronology Division units arrive at Outpost 7243. At 6:24, a sudden magnitude 8.5 earthquake levels Outpost 7243. The earthquake impacts population centers to varying degrees of intensity throughout North America, deployed units presume until action. In spite of the preceding earthquake, which appears to have directly originated from beneath the research and containment site, the site remains fully structurally intact and grows with increasingly optically distorted, eventually to the point of tornado hazardous abstraction, greatly hindering observation. After this, a tsunami forms in Lake Huron. The Overseer Council authorizes the experimental aerial containment operation over the affected area. At 6:25, a formation of silent hypersonic aircraft fly over the coast of Lake Huron to drop an Orichalcos-powered miter suspension bomb on research and containment site below, and direct hit is achieved. The device activates, disrupting the troposphere across Ipperwash Provincial Park. The miter suspension bomb releases an enormous burst of charged atomic energy, which quickly settles into an iridescent dome measuring 4 kilometers in diameter. At 6:26, a colossal tsunami wave rushes inland out of Lake Huron, but is repelled backwards into the lake by an unknown force. A miasma of indigo begins to emanate from within the dome, apparently contained inside of it. All readings change to indicate an imminent esoteric waste explosion of unprecedented mammoth scale. At 6:20, Site-43 is restored and then is destroyed entirely. E-001 was an FK-class paradoxism scenario, featuring an extreme, localized, metastable Copenhagen decoherence event. This event involved the overlap of many different possible chronologies which interacted with a multitude of paradoxes, retrocausal quanta generated by said paradoxes, aftermath quanta dispensed into research containment at Site-43, and other miscellaneous factors to prompt a zero-sum localized event collapse. This was later followed by localized event rebound. From baseline perspective, the totality of E001 took place over a period of 7 years, 4 months, and 18 days, and during which time Site-43 was near fully detached and dissociated from sense reality. Data recovered following E001 suggests an anterior temporal progression of precisely 6 years. E001 was induced by an attack of the Abatement Abatement Facility, AAX-F, systems by a fashion of deviant artificial intelligence released into the cyberspace upon the deactivation of SCP-7488, RAID Frame 8 Lotus. SCP-7243 detected this attack, recognized it as alpha priority, and restored to its default emergency behavior, seek out the individual on whom it is causally dependent. In this case, all members of ATF F-7243, and reinforced its chronology using their personnel histories as guideposts. In short, to pledge combat what it led systems viewed as an imminent CK-class event by attempting to draw out the statistically true version of itself from past actions, memories, and experiences of ATF F-7243, and projected this version of reality over its present existence, which it understood to be compromised by outside forces. Had a sufficient number of casually dependent personnel been present at this time, and local instability not resulted in the rapid overlap of over 100 failed anchoring attempts, the Plexa would have succeeded in its task. Instead, ATF F-7243 members both Deering's, Place H.M.D., McLinnis, Ing, Reinders, and Thorsten Deering were all unavailable, owing to either death, non-attendance, or incapacitation, and so the Plexa failed to determine a suitable alternative version of reality to which to replace itself. Its systems therefore attempted to construct a version of events wherein none of the aforementioned individuals were involved in its creation, or even alternatively in the history of Site-43. It resulted in 7243 summing numerous contradictory facts and projecting them as an objective truth to be realized simultaneously. Correspondingly, Site-43 and the greater Nexus 94 rapidly fell out of sync with the remainder of that universe and dissociated into 90% completeness. It is theorized that this effect was so all-encompassing that it could not be corrected by a naturally occurring CK or ZK class event, which may have been triggered multiple times during the process. The Plexa, now isolated within the rest of Nexus 94 in an uncompassable extra-ontological location, its function expedited by surviving on-site personnel, modeled with an uncountable number of irregular chronological paths, systematically eliminating any options which contradicted its directives. It was able to identify a preferable chronology within a distorted period of equivalent to roughly 7 years. The force of Nexus 94's recoherence was sufficient to overpower the span of any single remaining temporal paradoxes. Following a sharp increase in the appearance of new matter, the entire Nexus reconstituted into the span of a single day. In the wake of Site-43's original decoherence on April 21st, 2036, the Department of Esoteric Reduction was established to compensate for the loss of the Abatement Abatement section, its methods, its institutional knowledge. Esoteric Reduction reconstructed Outpost 7243 at the local limits of Nexus 0 as headquarters for the monitoring of the associated zone, as well as the logistics hub and managing the transport of esoteric effluents in Nexus 94. Though the Nexus not conventionally exists at this time, waste should still be moved into it via decommissioned pipeline, believed to have lensed Platonic material into the Abatement Abatement Facility AAF-W. For reasons which still remain obscure, this pipeline has not been fully disconnected. For almost the entirety of the span of Nexus 94's decoherence, it had been injected with vast quantities of esoteric waste from across the globe. Lacking a feasible alternative over the experience necessary to formulate one, esoteric reduction was allowed to proceed with this arrangement indefinitely. Data recovered subsequent to E001 suggests that the majority of this waste was successfully ameliorated by surviving personnel with any discontinuity upon the incident of Site-43's return to Texas reality. The remaining waste was absorbed into the environment at rapid speed, mixing and fusing with the remaining volatile aftermath retrocausal quanta within Site to concoct a disastrous chain reaction. A protective energy shield was deployed over Nexus 94. This contained the deleterious effects of the impending reaction, but did nothing to preserve its contents. Minutes after the shield was deployed, a cataclysmic explosion of esoteric waste was condensed. Anti-chrooms atomized what remained of Site-43, and the energy shield now overhangs over a vast, cavernous pit. Cleanup operations discovered a single member of the Site personnel unconscious but alive at the very perimeter of Nexus 94. The following is a transcription of footage recovered from the personnel uniform camera of Chief Amelia Tarosian Deering on September 8, 2043. Begin transcript. Chief Tarosian Deering standing in the operations control room of Abatement Abatement Facility AAF-X. She has activated the Duplex's reference seeking mechanism for the 486th time. The program runs and spatial flexures are visible through the observation glass, and the klaxon sounds. The chronological stability indicator flashes green. The floor beneath Tarosian Deering's feet disappears for 10 frames of the camera's footage, which the chasms below are visible as she falls forward to the center of the earth. She experiences a sudden jolt and sliders back, as soles of her boots are now detached, fused with the reformed floor. Chief Tarosian Deering watches a cavern in which AAF-X is situated continues to contract and expand. Machinery within shrinking and enlarging in opposite rhythm. There is no sound of thunder, as she covers her ears with her hands. Wait, there is a sound of thunder, sorry. Fuck. She covers her ears with her hands. The bulkhead door behind her shatters like glass, and Duplex's visible component hearts begin to shift red. The floors and walls begin to shake violently, and a fissure appears in the cavern ceiling beneath the Foundation's Abatement Abatement Facility AAF-D. It glows amber. Chief Tarosian Deering's diagnostics revealed that low-priority spectral material on a long-term holding cycle with the older facility has breached containment. It becomes visible as a steady downpour of amber fluid is tracked. The fluid coruscates, bends, and eventually approaches the control room with apparent intent. Chief Tarosian Deering leaps through the shattered door as the fluid limb snakes through the observation glass and begins pursuing her. She flees to the gradually reformulating ruins of AAF-X. A ruptured paraspectral grounding conduit arcs electricity into her uniform jacket, setting it ablaze with a blue fire. She tears it off without pausing her flight. There's no flash of amber, and she throws herself violently through the door into a side passage. The grasping spectral limb of her pursuer misses by millimeters. The floor disappears again, and does not immediately reformulate. Chief Tarosian Deering falls into the next sublevel, landing in a pool of red blood. Corpuscule is being churned by a series of amandine wisps. A limb reaches down towards her as she scrambles to the lip of the pool. She dives beneath the surface to avoid it. The ceiling above reformulates and the limb is severed. The leading end disintegrates into a shower of amber sparks which hiss and sparkle as they strike the blood. Chief Tarosian Deering surfaces and pulls herself towards safety. She staggers to her feet and continues to flee as the walls begin to glow white hot. A clover leaf of 7 identical passages meet each other in an open elevator shaft. Chief Tarosian Deering is seen approaching it from each passage. Each iteration is moving at different rate of speed, displaying injuries consistent with different trauma, running blind. Each iteration apparently follows into notice the others. The iteration presently filming reaches the elevator first, leaps into it, and activates the ascension controls. The remaining instances are caught by the attacking limb, which gathers them up as one, as they melt into an ectoplasm as the elevator rises to the ceiling, and visual contact is then lost. The sublevel of AAF-X is shimmering red. An automated emergency message begins to play. Recorded voice of Chief Terosian Deering. Chronological reinforcement is 50% complete. The realism factor is 7 ontotostic. Evacuation is advised where possible. The message repeats 7 times, gaining 1 additional voice in Torres with each repetition. Grinders, Martinez, in place HMD, Deering, and Duddle. Terosian Deering emerges into the tavern proper, moving at speed over a series of catwalks, which thread between towering factory stacks and storage tanks. Each is now translucent and filled with bubbling liquids in a variety of different colors. Electrical explosions occur in the distance. Across the pit at the core of the plexus and approaching Chief Terosian Deering's person, the resultant sounds appear to occur in reverse. The roof of the tavern begins to shimmer, and the roots of the clear-cut forest above are clearly visible with the external membrane of Site-43, the topside elevators, and the frantically warped remains of the surface refinery facilities. The assailant is visible above, winding through the windows and doors, over tracks and gantries, searching for its prey. Terosian Deering gasps in pain, severely winded, as she reaches the ingress tunnel to the disposal pit. The assailant snaps to attention and begins snaking towards her, partially obscured by the piping and machinery. Chief Terosian Deering clambers into an empty waste cart and sets the moving in reverse. The tracks of the pit terminus begin to deform like rubber, and the deformation spreading as the explosions grow in intensity and volume. The cart exits Site-43 and enters a system of circuitous SCP-7443 tunnels, rapidly outpacing the assailant. A persistent prismatic glow advancing from the cavern outpaces it as well, and disappears. The cart automatically ascends a series of switchbacks, switching violently as the tracks elasticize and vulcanize. Terosian Deering begins to weep. The waste car emerges at Depot 43 on the eastern fringe of NX-94, and Chief Terosian Deering leaps off and passes through the terminal station, strikes the platform and disintegrates. The visible light is pale gray, and all moving objects do so sluggishly with linear motion trails. She pulls herself hand over the platform and out of the station. It staggers at a jog towards the distant fence. There's a sudden distortion on the video feed, and the gray illumination is replaced by moonlight. Chief Terosian Deering turns over to look back as she passes through the unmanned security checkpoint. Her immediate surroundings are color tinted correctly, but the interior of the as yet dissociated space remains grayscaled, a bubble of color expanding from Site-43. The color is inverted from the original dissociative event. As she watches a ball of light originating from the sky cuts through the expanding starburst and coats the nexus with a bubble of reflective plasma. Before the coverage is complete, total obliteration of Site-43 from surface to AAF-X is visible. A single large amber tentacle thrashes in apparent distress and or frustration as it coils around the lone surviving stack. The facility's explosion temporarily overwhelms the atomic shield, casting the luminous tendrils into the sky, and late witches appear at points of brilliant light. Terosian Deering collapses, blocking the camera's view. End of transcript. What is waste? Waste is what you've done with your life, with our lives, essentially with every human life on Earth, every Earth. And for what? Pride? Selfishness? Misguided affection? The cost of that waste is incalculable. How could one even begin to abate a waste like that? The following files are a video transcript of Dr. Deering's visit to Chief Terosian Deering at Medical Area 01 on September 8, 2043, interposed extracts from her private electronic journal and personal uniform camera. Deering cautiously entered the hospital room, raising a hand in greeting as she spotted Chief Terosian Deering lying in the bed. Despite having no visible injury, she looked drained. He offered a soft, uncertain hey, to which she responded in time-managing faint smile. Unsure of what else to say, he asked how she was feeling, then quickly second-guessed himself, calling it a stupid question. She reassured him that it wasn't stupid at all, though she admitted she couldn't truly explain what she had gone through. Only fragments of it were clear in her mind. She gestured towards a chair, inviting him to sit down. Once he did, he commented that he was previously wondering why he had completely broken down during the ordeal. Deering admitted that the thought had crossed his mind, but claimed he'd had the good sense not to voice it. She teased him gently for that, remarking that he must have learned a lot while he was gone. After a great pause, told him it was alright to smile. Deering tried, though he confessed that expression his expression would take some time to catch up how he felt. With a tone of quiet awe, he asked her how she managed to endure it all, how she managed to do anything at all. She closed her eyes, still exhausted, and told him plainly that she wasn't ready to share everything. Not now, maybe not ever. Dudley Deering saved me, in a sense. I'd already been talking to my mirror for years, staring at myself in the face and asking what I should do. Imagining that my reflection was actually Phil's, not because he was some wellspring of knowledge. He'd have been the first to say that he put the J in J and M. He was smarter than he ever gave himself credit for, but he was no engineer. He fixed vending machines while I calibrated seismo plasma directors, handled technician schedules while I designed or calculated auto defectories. Anybody could have done his jobs, but it always meant something to me that it was him. So every single day since he's gone, I've imagined I can see him in the mirror, pushing me forward. But it's only my memory of him. It's a strong memory, but it still isn't real. A ghost in my shell. For that first year trapped in the world's highest state's escape room, I kept imagining him, egging me on, urging me to survive, to find a way out, like Elise did. But I'd gone to the well too many times, and I knew how shallow it was. I knew he was gone, even if I couldn't admit it. It wasn't enough to keep living for a dead man, so I let the picture shift and focus on someone who wasn't dead. We didn't transcript. The camera activates. Chief Corrosion Deering is standing in the concentration shell of the Abatement Abatement Facility AAF-D. The walls are coated with bubbling yellow mold. She opens the vault door and enters into the facility proper. The facility proper renders in muted colors with luminous gray outlines. She begins to walk toward the AAF-X access elevator. She looks down. She is wearing an exomat suit, the soles of which are sinking into the floor tiles, leaving visible footprints behind. She continues down the corridor, passing a series of prone human forms. Their bodies are misshapen and their name tags on their uniforms are completely blank. Camera activates. Chief Corrosion Deering is standing at the junction of one corridor and its apparent double, converging at an angle approximately 15 degrees so that the exterior wall of one blocks progress down the other. She reaches down to the valve on a tank attached to a rolling dolly at her side, and raises a misting wand, begins to spray a chalky substance onto the offending well. It then proceeds to scream. The camera activates. Chief Corrosion Deering is standing still in a featureless tiled corridor. She is shaking uncontrollably and hyperventilating, but no apparent danger is visible. She proceeds down the corridor, moving erratically, as though avoiding obstacles not apparent on the camera feed. Dr. Deering asked for anything she could share, and Chief Corrosion Deering explained that association had carried her through. She described how it felt like it took a month to reach her office, all while she barely needed food, sleep, or maybe even air. Other months was spent isolating the remaining AIs using only the control panel on her tablet. She watched the SRFs, already weak to the 80%, deteriorate day by day, knowing they would eventually fail and she would end up like everyone else. For now, though, the haze made everything feel distant, almost like waiting for a long sleep. Since she didn't focus on much, she focused only on what mattered. A Deering guessing that she meant escaping, to which she replied, mostly. I pictured Dudley Deering's smudged smirk and dead eyes, and I blamed him for everything he deserved to be blamed for. Failing to excel when he needed excellence the most, killing my husband, digging himself into a pity pit and hiding in it, begging me to forgive him, making me think I might someday have a reason to do it, and leaving us worse off than we'd ever been before we started. I used my hatred of him as a lodestar, my most powerful, unfailing, infinitely renewable reality anchor. Every inch I clawed back from oblivion stayed me closer to exposing him as a fraud to the O5 Council. Every grisly mess that popped back into existence in front of me, every body bifurcated by a wall, every streaming pile of gristle with its skin abstracted and its pain receptors shining in my flashlight, beam was another mistake I'd spit in his face. If only I held on a little bit longer. When I started powering up the machinery again, setting aside a task it was never designed to perform, and did the work for 100 checks at once, and I ached and sweated and froze and the hole in my stomach where I needed to eat and drink and defecate was gone. I told myself I was proving once for all of us, low technicians, actually putting in the elbow grease to do things that Deering had always been incapable of. Camera activates. Chief Terosian Deering is examining a makeshift thermotiltation meter consisting of a word tablet attached to the electrodes and an intensely vibrating pipe. She double-checks the readings, shaking her head, then sighs, and begins performing calculations manually on a tablet. Camera activates. Chief Terosian Deering is crouched over a console in AAF-X atrium. Remote controlling a maintenance drone. The drone is lidar mapping the interior of AAF-X, which is expanded by an order of magnitude the surrounding bedrock could not have been capable of containing or supporting. A sudden fluorescence of light strikes the drone, and it is explosively duplicated 15 times in a quick session. Signal is then lost, attenuated between too many devices all at once. She lies down on an inflatable mattress and stares at the ceiling until the camera automatically deactivates. The camera activates. Chief Terosian Deering is mapping out a tablet displaying reclamation schedule 2036 through 2037. Each item is marked complete in green. The date is visible, 6th of September. She deactivates the tablet and the reflection on her face becomes visible on the screen. She's smiling. Camera activates. Chief Terosian Deering is standing in the Operations Control Center for Abatement Abatement Facility, AAF-X, looking now into a central pit. A stream of heterogeneous effluence is pouring into the pit from above. She twists her tongue in disapproval. She's interacting with the Deplexa input console, generating a list of potential anchor targets for chronological reinforcement and sorted by declining probability. The highest rated anchor is Chief Terosian Deering. Subject confirms the selection, and Deplexa secures the referent anchor. The camera view flickers and distorts as a red light passes over her, and attempts to reconcile its chronology. Every flat plane in AAF-X begins to pulsate as a map to an invisible spheroid located in the central pit. An emergency klaxon sounds. Chief Terosian Deering runs diagnostics. Date and time are visible. 8th September, 6:21 p.m. The pulsation and klaxon cease, and error messages flood the console. The chronological stability indicator flashes red, and a glowing amber fissure appears at the tavern ceiling. The Deplexa begins its shutdown procedure. Dr. Deering, Reinders, and additional Chief Terosian Deering appear in the control room. They are reenacting the events of the original derealization event. The subject then flees. Dr. Deering admitted he was astonished by what she was able to achieve. The so-called rubber band effect, he explained, could have stretched on for another decade or more if she hadn't worked tirelessly to push through it. Neither he nor anyone else could have endured waiting that long. He told her painfully that they needed her back, yet somehow she had returned. She acknowledged it with a quiet, "Here I am." Wanting to understand, he pressed further, asking how she kept her perspective. How she kept working towards the impossible without even knowing if she had a chance. She answered simply that it had always been part of the job. They didn't get to take days off, not even when things seemed hopeless. They learned to laugh from him, a rare sound that made her look away. He apologized, saying he was just relieved. When she looked back, he assured him she understood, but adding that relief wasn't the issue. The real problem, she confessed, was that she had never actually heard him laugh like that before. He asked what it meant. He told him with a quiet way it sounded like him. Phil. My imaginary Phil. He used to tell me I was right or wrong based on what he'd think. I knew him like a glove. It was near perfect simulation. The gulf between that and reality was the first permanent pit of my stomach, but still it was a comfort. My apparition of Douglas Deering, all I could say was I was right. He was sorry. He'd always been so damn sorry. Camera activates. Chief Terosian Deering is standing within the concentration cell of Abatement Facility AAF-D. The walls are coated with bubbling yellow mold. She opens the vault door and exits the facility proper. The facility proper renders in muted colors of gray, with luminous gray outlines. She begins to stream and the camera deactivates. Camera activates again. Chief Terosian Deering is reviewing Reclamation Schedule 2036 through 2037, marking each complete item incomplete in red. Subject changes the title to Reclamation Schedule 2037 ? And begins to weep. Camera activates and Chief Terosian Deering is editing an electronic map of AAF-X on her tablet. The corridor in front of her deforms into match a new configuration, either silently or with sufficient volume to repeat the audio recording. Camera activates. Chief Terosian Deering is standing in the Operations Control Center for Abatement Facility AAF-X. The emergency klaxon is sounding as Duplexa attempts to reconcile its chronology using Dr. Udo Bokori as its referent. An applied occultism section in the uniform is visible in translucent hazardous materials for a container in the center of the room. Visibly respirating. Facial deformation is in progress. After the passage is approximately 10 minutes, facial deformation and klaxon cease simultaneously, and the chronological stability indicator flashes red. The recorded voice of Chief Terosian Deering says, "Reconciliation failure. Anchor stability insufficient." He selects the next listed anchor, Dr. William Weddle, and turns to face an opaque blue drum, featuring multiple freshly applied biohazard stickers. She begins reassembling her SMAT suit. The camera activates. The console remains visible, and 17 potential referent anchors have been unsuccessfully targeted for chronology reinforcement. The date and time is September 8th. The date and time is 8th September at 6:15. Chief Terosian Deering sighs and leaves the room in the direction of AAF-D elevator. Dr. Deering, feeling a little uneasy, suggested that after everything she'd been through, she must hate looking at him now. Chief Terosian Deering shook her head, explaining that it wasn't that simple. His face reminded her of someone else. He had a beard now, no glasses, but the resemblance was still too close. It was difficult for her to separate the two. She admitted she was exhausted, too drained to keep pushing the thought away. Deering tried to reassure her, saying that she might feel differently once she had rested, but she disagreed. To her, rest wouldn't change anything. She believed that she finally saw things with clarity. When pressed on what she meant, she told him that there was no point in resenting him. Yes, he should be foolish, but his own clumsy way he was still trying to help. I wanted to stay furious at him. I thought I needed inspiration. I wrote him a hailstorm of angry letters, perfecting the art of tearing a man to bloody shreds, and daydreamed about placing the bundle on his hand and forcing him to read until he was dealt with for good. But day by day, gradually, I lost my fire, alone in the lunacy. I couldn't keep up. I refused to give him his holy grail. Forgiveness. But I did try to forgive him. Focus on the work, find the solution, not in anyone's memory, and not out of spite, because I did my job. And I could do it. I needed doing. It needed doing. I was alive. Camera activates. Chief Terosian Deering is walking in a featureless void. She's reciting the Fibonacci sequence, turning 98 degrees after each odd number. The ambient darkness lightens noticeably each time she does this. Camera activates. Chief Terosian Deering is laughing. Camera shows the emergency terminal for Abatement Facility AAF-D's anachronic sump flush mechanism. She has apparently flushed the sump's contacts in the AAF-X and is observing the resulting interactions to plot a path AAF-X Operations Control Center. Camera activates. There's no light. Chief Terosian Deering says, 2041. Got through 52 potential anchors this time, and they all dragged. Hitting the shoal is about 20 minutes. Might go down with the ship this time. Any objections? Camera remains active for 19 minutes before red emergency lighting begins, illuminating the ceiling of the AAF-X Operations Control Room. She stands up, and picks up her tablet and heads to the door. Chief Terosian Deering confronted him bluntly, telling Dr. Deering that he was focused on fixing his old mistakes, that he kept creating new ones along the way, and that the pattern had to end immediately. When he tried to interject, she cut him off, saying that the problem wasn't a lack of thought, but the opposite. He thought constantly, but never actually mattered. Instead, he dwelled on how unfair things were, how none of it was truly his fault, without ever questioning the motives that drove his choices. She reminded him that his role was supposed to be solving the abatement crisis. Yet he had only been pretending to do that, burying himself in guilt while the world around him collapsed. She compared the situation to overflowing toilets, an urgent, undeniable disaster, while he wasted precious time on collecting the backlog of his conscience. Deering tried to defend himself, protesting that her words weren't fair, but she refused to let him retreat into self-pity. It wasn't about fairness, but rather about truth. Every time he failed, he seemed to wait for someone to reassure him, say that it was all okay. But she told him plainly that it wasn't. It was not okay. He kept squandering their final chances because he couldn't let go of his own regret. That era was finished now. If what he needed was forgiveness from Phil, he would never get it. Phil was gone. If what he needed was forgiveness from her, then fine. She was exhausted, worn down by his avoidance, and she would give it to him. I forgive you, she told him at last, voice sharp with finality. And then saying, you've worn me down. I'm sick of your bullshit. I forgive you. Take responsibility and do your job. When my resolve slipped, I promised myself I'd track down that superfluous twit and let him have it with both barrels as a victory treat. Every time I crawled out my new temporary heaven for a damnable annual reset, I imagined that it would be like to dig myself out entirely and meet him, getting inward from the other side, as I knew he would be, and I couldn't find my nerve. Maybe I long since lost it. He'd be trying for the first time, actually trying. And also for the first time, I found that wasn't nothing. He wasn't entirely without meaning. I simply haven't got energy to hate anyone. Hating him in my prison. This is ridiculous. Unending nightmare. It's burned through everything I've ever had. It's just him and me now. And when he said in a puff of selfish navel gazing, it's finally true. We understand each other. We both want this to be over. Camera activates. Chief Terosian Deering is standing in the Operations Control Center for Abatement Abatement Facility AAF-X, strolling through the list of potential reference to the lowest probability options. She locates the entry for the Dommel signature of the materials handling disaster, which killed Deputy Janitorial Maintenance Chief Philip Deering in 2028. Rated at a 0.00082 probability, and selects it. The date and time is 8 September 2042. She says, happy anniversary, and then activates the sequence. The chronological stability indicator flashes green. Dr. Deering stammers that he can't do it alone and asks for her help. He begs her not to give up. She says that she's only abandoning what's already lost. Once she recuperates, she'll return to the fight, but this time he'll do it properly, a complete solution, no quick fixes. He agrees, a little shaky, and promises this time will be different. She replies this is the last time. She can't keep fighting him, this is all that remains of the other man. After a long pause, Riley adds that she doesn't want to hate either of them anymore. Update, as of September 8th, 2043. Analysis reveals that the volume of energy released during Nexus 94's localized event rebound, which, while incredibly immense, did not nearly match the volume expected of such an expulsion. Current data suggests the most likely vector which the energy may have escaped resides in the threshold between consensus reality and the current decoherent space Nexus 94 was transposed to, meaning that it would have been released into extra-dimensional, possibly extra-universal space. If this is true, the model suggests that the high velocity of the esoteric waste containing this energy would relieve our foundation of its harmful effects in their entirety. The quanta would be propelled far from baseline reality. Update September 9th. The hypothesis yielded in the previous update has been confirmed. Per authority of the Oracle Collective. In the wake of event E001 and Central Normalcy Authority Iteration 94066-2B90E7 866-0244 ECE 96E 7776 DC 7F, numerous Central Normalcy authorities throughout the coalitional time-place reported the manifestation of new adverse anomalous phenomena of inexplicable provenance. A demonstrative selection of these reports was compiled into the following incident log, which was disseminated to the relevant authorities' Temporal Anomalies Department on September 9th, 2043, for the comments. Incident 3456. Location: Canonical Bundle WOAF Omega Blue. A bolus of unabated conceptual matter appears within the torps of a large-scale aggressor Brazil 01, undergoing atraumatic abatement procedures at Area 16. And administered with other substances processed at the facility, the bolus metastasizes within the torps and it instantiates what the Foundation soon terms a concept kaiju, resident within the logosphere. This entity promptly colonizes the realms of speech and cognition, preying on feeding on human mindfulness and assaulting linguistic structures in higher grammatical forms. Plans are underway for the installation of counter-conceptual linguistic device to combat it, codenamed Red Pen. Incident 4847. Location: Canonical Bundle WD-B1 Phi Red. A variation of cross-dimensional orbital mechanics resulted in a deposit of theovlavic material into the core of Sol. Correlation with subsequent solar alterations cannot be confirmed due to the cessation of diplomatic relations with this iteration due to irreconcilable transhumanistic change. Incident 47689. Location: Canonical Bundle OG-43 Alpha Blank. The Mobius Stripper, a temporal reduction system, a recursive pipe array some 7 kilometers in length, within atraumatic abatement facility WAF-D vanishes. Subsequent time plane and cosmosphere modeling renders suggested system becomes multiversally abstracted, forming temporally variable conduits between the timeline and a multitude of other timelines and adjacent reality spaces under Meta-Foundation purview. These conduits are further reported to facilitate the unwelcome interdimensional transference of various anomalous phenomena, particularly during emergent scenarios, add an additional layer of chaos and predictability to the scenario's results. Research conducted by the Iterations Department of History appears, in retrospect, to suggest a direct correlation between these conduits' deleterious effects and evidence of a chain of historical ZK-class reality failures, the last of which occurred in 1500 CE. Further cross-temporal analysis has been deferred to the O9 Collective, for the importance of the iteration in Meta-Foundation affairs. The O9 Collective has concluded that the above-described ZK-class phenomena constitute an ascension of Tier 4 cosmological anomaly, which threatens to fully manifest upon the authoritative Prime timeline and all its descendant branches. Incident 76893. Location: Canonical Bundle OG-43 Alpha Malachite. Ontologically dark-shifted material is deposited within atraumatic abatement facility AF-D at Watchtower 43 in equal proportion to the materials already present. Materials annihilate each other with a controlled fusion explosion which events through the multiversal conduits described above, dissipating in the atmosphere and resulting only in the equipment fatigue within the facility. Early estimates suggest an incremental increase in global climate change across all affected timelines alongside associated parachronological effects. Incident 234585. Location: Canonical Bundle Quadruple A Kappa Yellow. An instance of SCP Foundation Research Site 107 appears, constituting the only Foundation presence in this timeline. Meta-Foundation admission is pending first contract. It has been confirmed through the Collective's observation that this log was received and viewed by several relevant Authority Overseer personnel. For reasons unclear, the Authority has been no attempt to communicate with the Collective, nor to any impacted timeline, nor to ameliorate its impacts. Audit pending. The Last 72 Months of Site 43 by Chief Amelia O. Tarosian Deering. Acknowledgements. Special thanks to my supervisory committee, Dr. Elise Reinders, whose fault this wasn't, Dr. Douglas Deering, Phil. September 8th, 2036, Treatment Site 43 was excised from consensus reality. On 8th September 2043, it returned. Over the course of those 7 years, temporally constricted to 72 months within that pocket of unreality with no oversight, assistance, substance, or sleep, The majority of the SCP Foundation's atraumatic abatement procedures were carried out by one person, Chief Amelia Tarosian Deering of Janitorial and Maintenance. This is her testimony. A note was enclosed by Dr. Reinders. Dr. Deering engaged in multiple email correspondence with the Piltro Mentality Center on a daily basis from this point onward, developing a new radical esoteric reduction device and constructing a treatment Area 21 with the engineering expertise of Chief Tarosian Deering. The PM Center's half of this correspondence has been lost per mishandling of data transfer to Research Station Menosign. Select entries from Dr. Deering are attached below. It needs not to be foolproof. The last one failed to the full tampered with it. Human error cannot be a factor, or if it is, its influence needs to be isolated to things that can't destabilize our reality. If our solution threatens the stability of our own conceptual space, it's no better than the problem. Our own conceptual space. This phrase is key. You imply a feasible solution, one we can provide. Spell it out for me. There's never go on with that. Pocket dimensions. I've mulled this over and I think you're right. That's the angle. That's the obvious lesson to learn from what happened. We've essentially been handed a model that shows how it actually works. The engineering will be functionally identical, which is vital since I can't and won't put this in place without her help. I can sell her on pocket dimensions, not the other thing. As far as I'm concerned, it's just between you and me now. I'm not going to disappoint her again. I'm not going to look her in the eye and tell her I took another shortcut. We cannot yet approve our penultimate request. Context is expired. I have no intention of explaining what it means. That's what we're going to name the device. Don't ask me again. The project itself isn't. Give the project some fanciful, overwrought name that makes you feel better. Addendum 3. Project reports, proposal, and residuum. Project Enizimander. Quarterly report, quarter 3, 2045. Project Enizimander continues to be an unqualified success. We have transmitted 6 packets of esoteric effluence to their final destinations via the magic drawer, and all monitoring efforts suggest that they were properly abated to their destinations to a high degree of efficiency. 0511 confirms the absence of any noticeable backlash effects, and the project will continue as planned through the quarter 4 at the least. Precautions have been taken to ensure the events of 7243-1 cannot recur. Area 21 has received multiple requests from the Foundation facilities to implement limited local magic drawer devices at key points in the global logistics network. Due to the nature of magic drawer, however, any high degree of technical ability required to operate and maintain it, these requests have not necessarily been denied. We acknowledge that the present solution does not provide the same expense and proactive coverage as its predecessor, forcing the resumption of small-scale abatement processes to maintain equilibrium and constant innovation in that field. To that end, we have chosen to pursue a collaborative rather than unilateral approach. Esoteric Reduction Gala. In recognition of the incredible strides forward made by the project of esoteric reduction under Project Enizimander, and in light of the need to further solidify our lead in this long-running race, a decision was made to reinstate the annual Synopsium and Gala formerly hosted at the now defunct Abatement Group at Area 21. Highlights of this inaugural event included the touching retirement address of Dr. Adrian Zalata, a tribute to the lost personnel of Treatment Site 43 by Dr. Lillian Lillehammer, Chief Agent Delphina Ibanez, and Severa Okori, lectures on the anti-traumatic bleaching fields, demivalent short-circuiting and macrobacterial titration by Senior Site 91's abatement engineer, Rayner, and the wedding reception for our guest of honor, Drs. Amelia Tarosian Deering and Douglas Deering. What is waste? We stopped even trying to guess. We hardly even think about it anymore, except in the most absolute abstract. Out of sight, out of mind, where it once or once it was out of mind, out of sight. You tell me this is way better, but you can't tell me anything, not even now. You're then given a magic drawer packet delivery log. All of the packets have been delivered, except for one, which is still pending. Amelia's voice came out small at first, trembling on the edges of incredulity. You didn't tell me. You didn't. Tell me you didn't. The words were a plea disguised as accusation, and beat for the room held its breath. And Furby the room held its breath. Deering answered with a flat, tranquil cadence of a man who had rehearsed explanations and then found them inadequate. He told them about simulations. About a month spent running through variations of pocket dimension jumping until the results converge into that utterly unacceptable consensus. Without full time and coherence, the transfers would collapse in the destination. Rubber banding, he said, the same catastrophic rebound that had once shredded Duplexa. The word landed like a stone. Amelia's face hardened. Color drained from it. You lied to me, she said, not asking for denial but demanding the weight of honesty. It's just a deal, Duttle protested, immediate and defensive, not even a major detail. In every respect, except for ontological strength factor, his sentence trailed with the technicalities, for insufficient armor against the simple fact of betrayal. Amelia stood up as if to cross the room, and sat back down abruptly, motioned instead to look at someone unmoored. That wasn't it, she said, after a long silence. You didn't need my help. The accusation shifted, softening into something rawer. A wound exposed. He moved towards her, earnest and terrible in his need, looked at his hands and he took her hands in his in a small human gesture that tried to anchor them both. That isn't true. I need you on my side. I need you so I can make this possible. She shoved him away before he could finish. The shove was a punctuation that left no room for speculation. Don't say it, her voice in a rad laugh of disbelief. You wanted me to think that you'd found a permanent solution. Like you promised. You really are a sad sack of shit, Duttle Deering. She leaned forward and held her face in her hands. The laugh folded into something like hysteria. Grief. For a moment the room existed only in the press of their breathing. And so she straightened, the rage transmuted into focus. She was targeting us. Fine. What do we do about that? She rose. A question of challenge to the universe. Her posture snapped from weird to demanding. She needed facts, not consultations. Now actually, I need more information where precisely we've been sending these packets. What specific physical locations? Nuttle's reply was almost automatic. Site 43. Always Site 43. There is no Site 43, she said. A sentence of rebuke and realization both. The room pressed in, the air tasted metallic, and Reinders tried to remind her the chronological calculations, the variable nature of time and pocket dimensions. But Amelia cut through the technical preambles like a knife. She started, the rest of the thought crumbling. We've been sending this stuff back in time too, into other people's pasts. Duttle launched into the jargon. Transfer dilation, opportunity windows, and ratchet principle. The terms tumbled out of him, but there were no shield. Where in our past is this packet going, she demanded. He hesitated, then began to explain the selection algorithm. The way magic drawer weighted possibilities, the mechanisms by which it matched packet to target, the words were thin filigree around a devastating core. Then Duttle sat at the edge of a chair, nearly toppled. For a second his composure cracked and Amelia moved towards him as if to steady him. Then pulled back wary. What's wrong, she asked, short and clipped. It can't, he said, breathless. The syllables were a denial that failed to hold back the truth. Why can't, she demanded. And a sound. A gasp from Reinders made everything smaller and sharper. Duttle stood suddenly, the chair spinning away. No, we're not doing this, he said. And the words felt like a command and a supplication. Reiner's voice, flat with professional dread, cut through. It's already been done. Past is a pact, Duttle. The phrase landed like a verdict. Duttle shook his head in muttering disbelief, and then, with the quiet certainty of a man who was watching a terrible pattern repeat itself until understanding hardens in confession, he said, I won't do it, Amelia. I didn't do that. It seemed to hang in the air, a fragile denial, but then the narrative shifted and in being minutes recorded something colder. The executive staff convened, they compared packet metadata, traced the routing, the historical fixed division, cross-referenced the delivery manifests. The utterly confirmation arrived. Magic Drawer's next packet was scheduled for Acromac Abatement Facility AAF-D on September 8, 2028. The room smelled like burnt coffee and ozone. No one spoke for a long moment. Opportunity, Amelia said finally, and the word was like a scalpel. Not a problem. Her tone carried an edge of desperate optimism. She was seizing the possibility in the parcel seconds they had. Lieutenant said something innocuous. Enough to get the job done, but enough to kill him. Amelia, Reinders said. She was drowned out by the roar of practicality and ethical paralysis. Why not? But you just discovered that Phil was never meant to die. Voice cracked as the truth unspooled. We caused it. We can uncause it. We can fix the whole thing, and all we have to do is whiff the next shot. The logic was intoxicating in its simplicity. The illusion of a fixable error, of a single corrective nudge that would reroute catastrophe. Reinders and Duddle sat pushed back with institutional fear. Consequences of rewriting casualty. Spectre of paradoxes could stall the multiverse. We can't create a toxic uber paradox to save one human life, Reinders said softly, but the plea was more for order than for morality. You don't understand, Amelia pleaded. We're meant to do this. It is 1 in a million. No, and a possibility that we target ourselves. That can only mean fate. Her eyes shone with a kind of pain that was almost devotion. He turned to Duddle and gripped his shoulders. We can bring him back. His answer was a breath. Maybe. No, she responded, and then the ferocious honesty that cut through the technicalities. I need my husband back, and the room went silent again. Apologies were exchanged in a messy clatter of remorse and defensiveness, and Amelia's sorrow pressed against the edges of command, and Reiner checked the clock with a clinical calm. 2 hours and change. Trying to argue, decide, to wreck or save. There's nothing to debate, she said. But the debate thundered in the room anyway. They ran a test. Historic Lifford's matched packet contents against the AAF-D manifest. They watched their logs, they argued about pace, the man who did his crucial computations. He was silent, Duddle cursed, and the men drew teeth. The power fluctuation came like punctuation as Magic Drawer warmed. The systems hummed in the bowl. Duddle excused himself and walked away. Amelia and Reinders spoke quietly in her office, plotting. Then the alert. The aperture powered up, and they returned to find Duddle gone. And a search located him in the maintenance corridor within the loading aperture itself. The door would not open. She pounded on it until her hand bled. What are you doing? She screamed. She could see him through the porthole, still, hands clenching and unclenching, like a man warming himself by a forbidden flame. He's overriding the safeties, Reinders said over the PA. Amelia's world narrowed into that one fact. He's going to... No, absolutely not. Her hammering increased until the rhythm became a kind of prayer. Stop. We can work this out. Talk to me or I swear on this memory, I'm going to shut the whole system down. You can't, Reinders responded. You can't do that. Duddle turned, and the hollow honesty in his voice surprised her. You can't do that, he echoed. We don't mean you can't do that. Really, we mean it's the wrong move. He took a breath, and then with a simplicity that made the room tilt, he said the thing that reframed everything. I know what killed Phil. He tapped his chest like a bell. I killed Phil, he explained, with halting, terrible clarity. Whatever paraspectral thing that taken Phil had done so to the loop. It was a packet that needed agency, that somehow Duddle himself had been the node that drew the thing and that passed it on. He claimed the loop as his, a bootstrap paradox that made the terrible event both cause and effect. Amelia's fingers pressed to the porthole as if to feel the curve of inevitability. She remembered things she had not expected to, the shadow of something something reaching for her, a scrape in the chronology anchor, sensation of being targeted with symmetry, all of it made a cold kind of sense. 15 years circling the pipes, a thing waiting for the right hand to reopen the valve. Why does it have to be you, she cried. Practical, and he personal braided into the question. Duddle answered with a weakness that was almost devotion. He's my brother. Because this time I'll show up for him. He said he'd likely melt away, and that he probably would not survive the reception of the packet. But he believed, with the stubbornness of the guilty and hopeful, that it would not be the end. He had seen himself in the loops. He had seen the sequence where he drew in the energy and turned to the valve. He wanted to make it real. You're not in the loop, Amelia whispered, and then laughed. A dark, incredulous sound. You never did any of this for him, Duddle admitted later. a quieter, more terrible confession. I never did any of this for him. Time shrank to minutes. The ethics, the equations, the raw human plea collapsed into one painful, luminous axis. Bodo was going to step into the aperture. He held the remote in his hand like distractorment, pressed the button, and the inner door spun shut. Amelia's last words were not forgiveness. "I don't forgive you," she said. Even the klaxon shrieked and the system drowned into life. The packet fell like a curtain of impossible material, and for an instant she imagined the world would twist to follow it. Bodo's voice rose, a small, stubborn thing. Just a trick. Delivery completed, and the aperture exhaled a sound like the closing of a tomb. The noise stopped, the room was left with its broken clocks and unanswered prayers. What is waste? I guess you finally figured it out, Tuttle. This is the end of complied documents. Summary: deliberate abuse of authority resources precipitated enhanced ascension of Tier 4 cosmological anomaly, stagnation. In addition to the extensive material damages and injection of volatile anomalous phenomena within and beyond the coalitional time plane. Personnel in positions with unfettered access to the tower, resources, and opportunities for abuse of the same are governed by rationality, individual self-aggrandizement, and interpersonal indulgence. Iteration plays routine ignorance of metacontractual obligations, making no effort to report to the collective or acknowledging our existence. Per authority of the Oracle Collective, as clearly evidenced by this extensive report, you are deemed in the major violation of various multi-foundation agreement clauses, particularly those described in sections 1 and 3 regarding transfer of information and goods with the Oracle Collective and other meta-foundation signees. Pursuant to section 1.4b of Meta-Foundation Supertemporal Coalition Pact, your normalcy authority iteration has been ejected from the coalitional time plane. Any outstanding interdimensional access to the coalitional time plane has been severed. Your coverage under Goldbaker and Associates is now limited per your local provider's capabilities, and your temporal anomaly authority will soon revert to pre-coalitional status, losing any data which would allow your infiltration into the coalitional time plane, or any feasible recreation of our services. Your timeline is subject to the forces of the multiverse, including a variety of catastrophic events perpetuated by your iteration in kind. We implore you to exercise greater caution in your efforts to contain and in balance with your aims to secure and protect. Good luck on your own.